it right there!
L!
Release her or I'll blast your queen. I mean it.
This is the spy that we succeeded in capturing, Queen Corellia. It was through the Forbidden Sea that she arrived. There are 2 packs of guardians stationed there to keep an eye on it and protect it from any potential attackers. The next step is to place her inside the Mind Probe. It's the late 1970s, and Star Wars has just recently become a phenomenon that has swept the globe. Studios all over the world are frantically trying to emulate its popularity, which has resulted in a surge of science fiction films that are attempting to capture even a small portion of its enchantment. Starcrash was one of them. It was an Italian-American space opera that did not simply replicate Star Wars. Rather, it leaned into its campy and pulpy beginnings and produced something that was wholly its own. On the other hand, despite the fact that the movie itself is known for its extravagant spectacle and odd storytelling, one of the most memorable controversy that surrounded the movie was about Caroline Munro's leather bikini, which has since become an icon. What were the reasons for the American studio's insistence that her attire change? It is unclear what led them to feel that the cosmic fashion choices that Munro would make would be problematic for television audiences. Soon we will speak about that. But before we get into that, let's take a look at the world of Starcrash, a movie that defied logic, budget restraints, and even common sense in order to become one of the most cherished cult classics in the history of science fiction literature. A picture that combines the grandiosity of spacefaring epics with the fantasy aspects of old-school adventure, Starcrash was directed by Luigi Cozzi, an Italian filmmaker who was billed as Louis Coates in the United States. Rather than being merely another imitation of Star Wars, Cozzi, who is a major lover of Ray Harryhausen's work, envisioned Starcrash as a space-based Sinbad. This perspective provides an explanation for the film's distinctive visual style, which includes stop-motion creatures, intricate miniatures, and a universe that is brilliant and colorful. In October of 1977, production began, and the filming took place at Rome's Cinecittà Studios, which is widely regarded as the most prestigious location for Italian cinema. Despite having a budget of approximately $4 million, which is a fraction of the financing that Star Wars receives, the film made the most of the resources that it had. Artists from Italy were responsible for the tiny effects, while developers from the United States were brought in to create additional special effects. These effects included snorkel photography and mechanical modifications. On the other hand, the production of the movie was everything but easy. Filming took place over the course of more than 6 months, and it was frequently delayed owing to financial difficulties. The plot revolves around Stella Star, portrayed by Caroline Munro, who is the most accomplished smuggler in the galaxy, and her sidekick, Acton, who is portrayed by Marja Gortner and is a strange and almost supernatural figure. In the event that the 2 individuals are taken captive by the Imperial Space Police, they are promptly presented with a deal that grants them freedom in exchange for a perilous mission. The mission is to locate Prince Simon, the lost son of the Emperor, who is portrayed by David Hasselhoff, and to prevent the evil Count Zarth Arn, who is portrayed by Joe Spinell, from unleashing a superweapon that has the potential to destroy the entire galaxy. Their voyage takes them through a succession of bizarre and unrelated events, including encounters with Amazonian warrior women, battles with a massive robot, survival on an ice planet, and even encounters with cavemen. Acton holds a laser sword that is strangely similar to a lightsaber and exhibits powers that are never entirely described, while Stella Star demonstrates that she is a daring fighter without ever being fully explained. During the climax, the Emperor, who is portrayed by Christopher Plummer, who reportedly took on the role for the sole purpose of visiting Rome, launches an all-out attack against Zarth Arn. This leads to a final confrontation in which Stella and her allies save the universe in the most absurdly over-the-top way possible, by crashing an entire space station into the lair of the villain. Right now, let's go back to the story that was hinted at the beginning. Caroline Munro's attire, or the lack thereof, became a source of discontent behind the scenes that was being discussed. It was originally planned for Munro to use her skimpy leather bikini throughout the entirety of the movie, in order to emphasize the fact that her character is a science fiction femme fatale. On the other hand, executives from American studios were concerned that her attire might be regarded too provocative for television broadcasts, which led to concerns about censorship. As a consequence of this, the character of Munro was given more outfit changes in the later half of the movie, transitioning to attire that was more conservative. Although the alterations made to the costume at the 11th hour did not prevent Starcrash from becoming a cult classic, they did contribute to the film's legacy as a piece of science fiction history that is riddled with odd production choices. Despite the fact that the attempt to edit Munro's attire was unsuccessful, the original bikini became much more well-known. Posters, promotional materials, and discussions with fans continued to stress the original design, thereby establishing it as an iconic component of the film's identity. Beyond Munro, the film's cast has a remarkable assortment of talented individuals. After a career as a child evangelist preacher, Marjo Gortner, who portrays Acton, eventually transitioned into the acting industry. As Prince Simon, David Hasselhoff, who was still in the early stages of his career, had his first experience with science fiction action. In the meantime, Christopher Plummer, who was already a well-known actor, was reputedly paid $10,000 each day. Joe Spinell, who is well known for his roles in Rocky and The Godfather, plays the character of Count Zarth Arn. Spinell gives an outrageous performance as the antagonist, which is perfectly suited to the circumstances of Starcrash's universe. In addition to his threatening rants and exaggerated line delivery, he contributes to the hilarious silliness of the film. If there is one aspect of Starcrash that cannot be denounced as being of exceptional quality, it is the music. John Barry, a famed composer who is most known for his work on the James Bond series and Out of Africa, was the one responsible for composing the score for the picture. Even the most ridiculous scenes in Starcrash have the feeling that they belong in a much more serious science fiction epic, thanks to Barry's enormous orchestral compositions, which lend the film a sense of confidence and credibility. Ironically, despite his legendary status and a career filled with acclaimed compositions, it was rumored that John Barry was initially hesitant to take on the task of composing the soundtrack for Starcrash. Known for his sophisticated scores in iconic films such as the James Bond series and Out of Africa, Barry reportedly viewed Starcrash with skepticism, unsure if a campy, low-budget space opera aligned with his musical legacy. In fact, his reluctance was so pronounced that the film's producers were said to be extremely cautious, even going so far as to avoid showing him the final cut of the film until the very last moment. They feared that if he saw the disjointed narrative, amateurish special effects, and overall eccentric tone of the film too early, he might walk away from the project altogether, leaving them without a musical anchor to elevate the production. When Starcrash finally debuted in 1978, those fears seemed justified. The film was met with a torrent of negative reviews from critics who found little to praise. Its narrative was widely regarded as incoherent, the dialogue unintentionally laughable, and the special effects, which leaned heavily on low-cost miniatures and stop-motion, were considered absurd even by the era's modest standards. Variety, one of the industry's most respected voices, lambasted the film for being a pale and clumsy imitation of Star Wars, criticizing its unimpressive cinematography and overall production value. To many, Starcrash appeared to be nothing more than a failed attempt to ride the coattails of George Lucas's galactic success. And yet, as with many cult classics, Starcrash refused to fade into obscurity. Over time, the very elements that had drawn ridicule began to attract a new kind of admiration. Audiences found charm in its low-budget creativity and unintentional humor. Its outlandish set pieces, colorful costumes, and melodramatic performances transformed it from a cinematic misfire into a beloved oddity. Midnight movie screenings across the US and Europe began to embrace the film, with fans reveling in its glorious imperfections. Rather than being dismissed as a forgettable knockoff, Starcrash found itself recontextualized as a celebration of unapologetic camp and sci-fi ambition gone off the rails. Its cult following grew steadily, fueled by nostalgia, a love for B-movie aesthetics, and an appreciation for the strange magic that can emerge when earnestness meets chaos on screen. In the year 2017, the film Starcrash was given the treatment of Mystery Science Theater 3000, which further cemented its position as a cherished piece of the history of independent films. It has also been acknowledged as one of the most fun Star Wars knockoffs, and it is frequently praised for its sheer boldness more than for the quality of its work. Now is the moment for you to provide feedback. Did you watch the movie Starcrash? Among the many ludicrous moments in the movie, which one is your favorite? Leave a comment below and let us know.